To give the opening signal for
50,000-watt Prairie
50,000
Regional
water
Transmitter, CBK, at Watrous, Saskatchewan.
Tonight, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation officially opens and dedicates to the service of the Canadian listening public its new 50,000-watt Prairie Regional Station, CBK. I'm speaking from CBK's new modern transmitter building, which stands a new landmark in the center of Canada's famed wheat-growing country. The great vertical antenna reaches 460 feet into the sky. Tonight we are to hear messages from the Honorable C.D. Howe, Minister of Transport, Mr. L.W. Brockington, K.C., Chairman of the Board of Governors of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, Mr. F.W. Ogilvie, Director General of the British Broadcasting Corporation, Mr. William S. Paley, President of the Columbia Broadcasting System of the United States, and the Premiers of Canada's 3 prairie provinces, Mr. Bracken of Manitoba, Mr. Patterson of Saskatchewan, and Mr. Eberhart of Alberta. It is now my privilege to ask these distinguished gentlemen to speak to you. This is CBK calling the Minister of Transport, Mr. Howe, in Ottawa.
It has been my privilege within the last 2 years to give the opening signal for 3 50,000-watt regional broadcasting stations, one for Ontario, one for Quebec, and one for the Maritime Provinces. Tonight, I add a 4th to that number in opening CBK, the new 50,000-watt station for the Prairie Provinces. These 4 regional broadcasting stations, together with the regional transmitter for British Columbia, opened some 4 years ago, provide coverage for a high percentage of our Canadian people and bring national programs into a very large number of Canadian homes. I am happy to be associated on this program with the premiers of the 3 prairie provinces. While CBK is located in Saskatchewan, near Watrous, it is hoped and expected that its voice will be heard from the foothills of the Rockies to as far east as Winnipeg, and from the international boundary to the northern outposts. The site of the station was selected after exhaustive engineering surveys as the point most favorable for covering this area. I am told by radio engineers, both in Canada and in the United States, that no station in the world of the same power will be able to give anything like the same coverage, due to its admirable location and to the receptive terrain of the surrounding plains. Nowhere in Canada are the comfort and joy which radio brings more generally appreciated than in Western Canada. I am glad to be able to tell the prairie listeners that the opening of CBK makes available to them the full coverage of CBC programs and service. The new station, CBK, is not intended to supplant privately owned stations in the 3 prairie provinces, stations which have pioneered in radio and which serve well the communities in which they are located. I understand that the policy of CBC will be to evolve a working partnership with these stations to the advantage of the listener. The establishment of station CBK and the development of radio in the prairie provinces generally will not only bring to prairie listeners a wider range of programs, but will also enable other parts of Canada to obtain more and better programs originating in these provinces. Programs from the prairies have been featured on the CBC network since the beginning of coast-to-coast broadcasting, and it is expected that with improved facilities, improved program production will follow. The radio has played and will continue to play an important part toward a better understanding between the several and distinct geographical divisions of our vast dominion. Toward this end, station CBK will be of great value to the prairies and to Canada as a whole. On behalf of the Government of Canada, I declare open for service the CBC's new regional transmitter, CBK, located at Watrous, Saskatchewan.
Mr. L.W. Brockington, Chairman of the Board of Governors of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and Mr. F.W. Ogilvie, Director General of the British Broadcasting Corporation, will speak to you from England. First, Mr. Brockington. This is CBK calling Mr. L.W. Brockington in London.
Hello, Canada. Hello, Watrous, Saskatchewan. I suppose that being where I am, I should have asked the rather unnecessary question, are you there? But we all know that you are there and rejoice accordingly. It is now past 3 in the morning in London, and here all good broadcasters, except Mr. Ogilvie, the Director General of the British Broadcasting Corporation, and a few Empire broadcasters are fast asleep in bed and probably creating their own static in the broadcasting of their own slumbers. In short, all the life of this great city does not at this moment appear to make half as much noise as the crows that are returning from their convention in the suburbs of Watrous, or the mosquito hawks which are wheeling and screaming above its housetops. This morning, the BBC, with its usual generous courtesy towards Canada, has made available a special beam service to allow Mr. Ogilvie to greet you with a message of family friendliness and to permit me, while joining in the dedication of station CBK, to send a brief message to my fellow countrymen from this ancient land of Britain, whose ordinary men and women, in these days of bewilderment, as always, do not quite succeed in hiding their idealism, their gentleness, and their compassionate sense of justice in their deep silences, their grimness, and their preparation for peace. The station, which now enters upon its career of service to you, its owners, under the guidance of us, your servants, is the fourth and not the least important link in the national scheme of high-power radio coverage which we have thought necessary to establish in order to secure the advantages of national control and ownership to the people of Canada, and particularly to those removed from great centers of population. As your governors neither take nor deserve any part in the credit for the performance, I can say that those advantages could not have been more clearly demonstrated than in the wistful days, but a few weeks past, when their majesties went on their pilgrimage down the King's Highway that leads from Sydney to Victoria. Station CBK could not have been constructed except by national effort. It could not be operated except by national control. No commercial system could or would either construct or operate it. We hope that it will bring joy to the Western people whom it is designed primarily to serve. And I know that all true Canadians in all parts of Canada will share that hope. Much remains to be done. The cordial conferences which have taken place in this city of London will bring more good British programs to Canada and more Canadian programs to Britain. Before I surrender my trust, however, there is one relevant and remaining task which I propose to commend heartily and vigorously to you and to our government. Talks with BBC officials and leading Englishmen and Canadians have only served to re-emphasize the importance of a national project which two successive committees of Parliament have unanimously recommended: the immediate establishment of a Canadian shortwave station. Not for propaganda purposes, of course, because Canada, happily, has another part to play in the world's tribulation. But we have our own particular story to tell. Our national dignity and interest demand a shortwave national station. Channels must be occupied if someday they are not to be lost by apathy and neglect. We must make some attempt to make some airborne gifts to us from other lands, and especially from Britain. We can legitimately let the world know what goods we have to exchange for. Above all, our kindly mother Canada can do one thing best of all. She, standing steadfast in the belief that North America was intended to be one of God's charities to mankind, can help this stricken world by the example within her gates and by the act, word, and deed of international goodwill. Thus, she can speak of her own experiment in the healing and reconciliation of nations which the great lawgiver enjoined upon his people. The stranger that dwelleth with you shall be unto you as one born among you, and thou shalt love him as thyself. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that you will not mind me wishing an affectionate good night to my wife and children. It is now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Ogilvy, Director General of the BBC. Its ideals and achievements have been and are an inspiration to national broadcasting the world over.
Thank you, Mr. Brockington, most warmly, for asking me to say a few words on behalf of the BBC at the opening of this new CBC station. I have never been in Canada. I say it to my shame, but I hope to go there at the earliest opportunity. And in any case, all of us at the BBC, whether we have had the good luck to be in Canada or not, prize most highly the friendship and the free cooperation between our two broadcasting organizations. With this new prairie station of yours, the voice of Canada and of the world will be properly heard for the first time throughout Manitoba and Saskatchewan and Alberta and up in the great Northwest. This sweep of land, with its patient and courageous farmers, upon whose skill and industry we too depend, will now take its place with the Maritimes and Quebec and Ontario in the CBC's chain. At the camp of the prospector, the shack of the trapper, the frontier home of the missionary, at the lonely post of the mounted policeman, the turn of a wireless switch will make Canadian listeners freemen of this new kingdom of the air. I said that I had never been in Canada, and of course that's true in one sense. But in another sense, somehow, it's not true. Most emphatically not true. For who is there that at many times from boyhood on has not spread out the map of Canada in front of him, pulled down a book, and blazed the trail across your forests and rapids and snows in the company of Canadian explorers like André, or the pioneers who first set sail from our shores like Mackenzie or Fraser or Thompson, not least like Kelsey 250 years ago, whose name you commemorate in the call sign of your new station, CBK.
The very place names on your map are magic to us. A mosaic of history, your history and ours. In the few days since Mr. Brockington and Mr. Murray set foot in England, we have had many discussions together, exploring the possibilities of still further exchange of broadcast programs between Canada and the British Isles. So far as the BBC is concerned, we want to take the best of Canada more and more into our homes. And we want to do all we can to give you whatever you may want of our best. Exchanges of our best across the frontiers. That, obviously, is one of the chief purposes of broadcasting. And the opening of CBK tonight will greatly help to enlarge the field of broadcast imports and exports. I am proud tonight to have the privilege of speaking side by side, not only with Canadians, but with Mr. Paley, the representative of one of the great broadcasting systems of the United States, to all of which we here are deeply indebted for unfailing courtesy and help. On behalf of the BBC, I send warm greetings and best wishes to the CBC, and of course especially tonight to listeners who are tuned in to CBK. Good luck and good broadcasting. Au nom du Radio Angleterre, j'exprime au Radio Canada mes félicitations et mes souhaits les plus cordiaux. Je les exprime ce soir surtout aux écouteurs de la poste CBK. À tous, bonne chance.
This is London, returning you to Watrous, Saskatchewan.
International goodwill has received a tremendous impetus through the influence of broadcasting. Speaking for a friendly American network is Mr. William S. Paley, President of the Columbia Broadcasting System. This is CBK calling Mr. William S. Paley in New York.
I'm happy to be taking part in this program tonight, dedicating CBK's 50,000-watt transmitter. This occasion marks another forward step in the rapid and constructive expansion of Canada's broadcasting service. It gives me great personal pleasure to congratulate most heartily Mr. Brockington, Chairman of the Board of the CBC, who has just spoken to you from London, and my good friend of many years in broadcasting, Mr. Gladstone Murray, your able General Manager. Their success in coordinating and developing the far-flung service now available to Canadian listeners sweeps on tonight through CBK to new levels of accomplishment. Saskatchewan, with its vast area of nearly 250,000 square miles and ranking third in population of Canadian provinces, is both a responsibility and a challenge to the service which CBK will render over its new high-powered transmitter. Whether radio is reaching the large cities or the isolated farmhouse, it is becoming increasingly important in a world of rapid change that each listener be able to rely confidently on the service of the station in its area and the character of that station's management. Not infrequently, this service is the principal contact which whole families have with the outside world, and its maintenance thus becomes a high purpose in itself. We of Columbia have been grateful on many occasions for the willing and intelligent cooperation of Canadian stations in making it possible to bring programs of international interest to millions of our American homes. Perhaps the most outstanding example of this was the recent visit of Their Majesties to Canada. During the whole of their travels, the people of both your country and mine, wherever situated or however isolated, were able to follow intimately and graphically each stage of Their Majesties' journey. Such service has a far-reaching human significance, and one, I believe, that we in broadcasting are deeply conscious of. For more than 100 years, trade between our two countries has flowed across 3,000 miles of friendly and open border. To this has been added, in the past 20 years, the flow of a free and untrammeled communication between our two countries across uncensored channels of the air in a liberal exchange of viewpoints, of entertainment, of education, and of news. This free and friendly exchange is in itself something in which not only the broadcasters, but every citizen of both of our countries may justly take pride. For here in America, the miracle of radio communication has been given free play to strengthen the bonds of humanity between two great neighbor countries. It has been allowed to reveal us to each other, to let us know each other better, and to share our common ideals and aspirations. Where else in the world is this as fully true as here? Where else has radio been allowed, simply and frankly, to mirror the lives of the people of one country to the people of a neighbor country without censorship or distortion? I think we may all be justly proud that we represent two great countries who discover anew each day, through windows thrown wide open to each other on the channels of the air, the bonds of friendship and democracy that inspire us both. In that spirit, I welcome the steadily increasing contact between our executives and staff members, and I look forward to the day when American and Canadian radio artists will be equally familiar to the listeners of both countries. And so, in extending my personal congratulations and wishing continued success to your chairman, your general manager, and the staff of CBK, I do so as well on behalf of Columbia's network of stations and the members of its entire organization.
From Ottawa, London, and New York have come messages of official and friendly greeting. Let us turn now to the three prairie provinces, the area which CBK has been designed to serve. Speaking for Saskatchewan is Premier W.J. Patterson, who is present at a banquet being given by the Watrous Board of Trade in connection with the opening of CBK. This is CBK calling Premier W.J. Patterson in Watrous.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege to be associated with the official opening of CBK, the new Canadian Broadcasting Corporation radio station at Watrous. I speak from the banquet hall at Watrous, and for the benefit of those listening in who do not know the location of that town, may I say that it is a divisional point on the Canadian National Railways and is located approximately at the geographical center of the Canadian Prairie region. It is also noted because near Watrous is the famed Manitou Lake, which is frequently referred to as the Carlsbad of Canada. Gathered here in the basement of the United Church are several hundred citizens of Watrous and vicinity, together with a number of distinguished citizens of Regina and Saskatoon, who are gathered to celebrate the opening of CBK. While radio is of comparatively recent development, it has already taken its place as an important part in the life of our people. It is important from both an educational and an entertainment point of view. Possibly in its earlier stages, radio was largely regarded as a form of entertainment, but with recent developments, it is rapidly assuming a more serious and a more important place in our daily life. Recent years have seen a very decided improvement in the standard of programs provided by radio, and nowhere has this been more evident than in the Dominion of Canada. It will, of course, always be impossible for any board administering this or any similar service to obtain unanimous approval, but it must be generally agreed that the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation has, during the years of its operation, very substantially raised the standard and type of program offered to the public, and in doing so, it has also educated the public to demand better programs. Without entering into any argument as to the relative merits of public or private control of radio broadcasting, we can all pay tribute to the splendid work which has been done by the corporation during recent years. In dealing with questions related to types of program and the standard of entertainment offered, the corporation has not neglected the technical and operating problems existent in the Dominion. The construction of this station is evidence of the desire of the corporation to give the people of Canada the best not only in type and variety of program, but also to provide the best in technical and equipment service, and to provide the equal in that respect to any other country in the world. The prairies have for a number of years been served with many efficiently private-owned stations. We are indebted to them for the service they have supplied, and it is no reflection on them to say that we welcome the inauguration of this centrally located high-power station, which will provide the people of the prairies with a service which has not previously been available to them. We can all realize that radio and broadcasting presents many problems and difficulties that the average listener does not appreciate or understand. But we do feel that the CBC is making an honest and a sincere effort to give us the very best in the way of radio service. In conclusion, I desire to express best wishes to CBK and to all of those who may be associated with its operation, and I sincerely hope that it will have every success.
Premier John Bracken will speak for the province of Manitoba. This is CBK calling Premier John Bracken in Winnipeg.
Fellow Canadians, the opening of this radio station is an event of more than usual interest to Western Canada. Its voice will be heard not only over the wide reaches of the Middle West, but in all the more remote areas of the North, some of which up to now have had no satisfactory broadcasting service. On an occasion such as this, when men's voices are so clearly heard from widely separated parts of the world, one cannot but reflect upon the potential value of a powerful station such as this for the advancement of national as well as international understanding. A few days ago, Canada celebrated the anniversary of the first meeting of the Fathers of Confederation, 75 years ago. The obstacles which lay in the path of the statesmen who conceived Confederation were very great. The difficulties that now exist of preserving the unity of the nation they brought into being are equally great. It is perhaps too much to hope that all differences of outlook and of methods of dealing with our problems will shortly disappear, but it is surely not too much to expect, as the various parts of the nation speak daily with one another over the airwaves, that we shall come to know each other better, and in the light of a better understanding, find solutions for our common problems, which will be in the general interest of us all. A few months ago, TransCanada Airlines opened an aeroplane service which brought the extreme limits of our country within the space of a day's travel. On that occasion, with others, it was my privilege to have dinner in Vancouver one evening and to have lunch in Montreal at noon the next day. We might have gone further and had dinner at Charlottetown or Halifax the same evening, spanning the whole continent in much less than the length of one day. And now, tonight, by another means of communication, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation has annihilated space and brought victory over the wide distances which have tended to separate and divide the different parts of the nation. It is with thoughts such as these in mind that we greet CBK tonight. We welcome it for what it will mean to listeners in the whole of the Prairie West and in the pioneer areas of the wooded and mineralized North. We welcome it for the promise it brings of the extension of a great agency of friendliness and national understanding to the firesides of all our people, those in the remote corners of the frontier, as well as those in the busy centers of population. It is a very great pleasure on behalf of the people of Manitoba to wish for this new station the greatest possible measure of success.
Premier William Aberhart will speak for the province of Alberta. This is CBK calling Premier William Eberhart in Edmonton.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is with much delight that I speak a few words on behalf of the people of Alberta on this important occasion in honor of the opening of this splendid Western radio station. I think that we in Canada are particularly fortunate in the management of our radio broadcasting system. It has striven thus far for the utmost preservation of our democratic ideals while granting us a maximum of freedom without undue license. For this, we have to thank the high standard of administration being developed by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. An outstanding example of this was the very efficient manner in which the broadcast of Their Majesties' tour was brought to the homes of Canada's millions. It was a credit to the nation and a great achievement for CBC. We all know that the radio plays a very important part in all progress. We in Alberta are blessed with many gifts of a bountiful providence. Within our boundaries, we have some of the most beautiful scenery in the world. Alberta is a veritable paradise for the tourist, the sportsman, and the artist. You can hear of all these over the radio. Then, too, this province is preeminent for its agricultural products. Its vast resources of oil and the coal deposits which could supply Canada's needs for centuries. But above all, we are blessed with a virile and progressive people who fully appreciate the blessings of modern scientific progress, and they certainly enjoy the service that can be given them through an efficient radio broadcasting system. Our people, therefore, desire and welcome this new convenience in our new station. Today we face serious problems. Our path is beset with many difficulties, but these are difficulties of our own making. There is nothing insuperable about them. The means to attain the highest standard of living in the world exist here in Canada. So with proper correlation of our resources, we can attain it. In this, the radio plays a great part. In fact, of all modern inventions, the radio stands out as the greatest medium for this purpose. It is most efficient in the spread of ideas, and all progress springs from ideas. We in the West have greatly enjoyed the service given us by the CBC, but we've been very conscious of the fact we were not linked together more closely by a Western station of our own. The splendid services of our local stations have reached a very high standard and have taught our people the great advantages of efficient broadcasting. Therefore, it is with real pleasure that we in Alberta join with our Western sister provinces in welcoming the opening of CBK today. An important link has been forged in bringing us closer together, and I predict with confidence that the results will prove of inestimable value not only to the West but to Canada as a whole. So here's wishing the CBC and our new station, CBK, good luck and good service. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
This has been the inaugural broadcast of the CBC's new 50,000-watt Prairie Regional Transmitter, CBK, at Watrous. We invite you to listen to the special salute programs to CBK, which will follow in the course of the evening's broadcasting. This is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.